I got into it, into wargaming when I was between my sophomore and junior year in high school. I saw this war game called Africa Corps, which I'd never seen a war game before. And so I bought it, but I'd heard of the Africa Corps, and so I played it, and I really liked it. It got me interested in reading about the history, and the more I read about the history, the less I liked the game because it didn't agree with the history, and I started modifying the game, making new units and changing the map. And I guess I got that bug for historical game design then. I started a game publishing company in '73. We started off doing board games, historical board games, but we ended up doing role-playing games as well. We did the first science fiction role-playing game, Traveler. I designed the first steampunk role-playing game, Space 1889. We also did a lot of miniatures rules, Command Decision, which is a World War II game, Volley and Bayonet, which is a 18th to 19th century black powder game, Striker, which was a science fiction game set in the far future. And since GDW closed, I've been a freelance designer, and now I write science fiction as well. But still, kind of my roots are always here in the gaming community. Especially for historical games, you have to start with some research, because the thing that draws people into the games is an interest in history, and then a feeling that the game lets them kind of interact and be part of that history and relive parts of it. And so the history's got to be good enough that it gives people that illusion that they're actually doing something that has that they're taking part in the history and reliving it. So that aspect of the research is important, and you also want the rules to be understandable, easy to play, not burdensome and tedious, but still feel like you're really doing a good job of capturing the history. Keeping it simple without making it simple-minded. I mean, it has to be a game that's fun to play. It has to be a game that's easy to play, but it's also got to be a game that's got interesting things in the game mechanic, and a genuine sense of the history. And sometimes those things are competing against each other. The simplicity of play and ease of play against that sense of verisimilitude, that what you're doing here is a reflection of something real. So that's the hardest part, is that balancing act. There was a time when I tried to figure out what the market wanted and write to it. That there's a certain type of game that I didn't care for, but a lot of people seem to like, and so I tried to write that game. Those were never my most successful designs. My most successful designs have always been the games that I decided was the game I wanted to play and that really interested me. And you kind of have to trust that whatever it is that interests you is going to find an audience of people. That all you can really do is find something that is genuinely within yourself, and hope that finds an audience that will also appeal to. To me, my favorite aspect of strategy gaming is, interesting enough, as the name suggests, the strategic decision making. Kind of looking at a situation and saying, the best solution to this situation is to do this and this and this. I don't enjoy as much getting every inch out of every rule, the really kind of nitty-gritty tactical decisions. You have to have those in a game, but that's not where I find it most interesting. I find it most interesting at the top down, kind of looking at the whole battlefield and saying, I want to push over here on the right flank and hold on the left, or something like that. That kind of big decision making. That's what I find most interesting. I mostly write historical games. I mean, I've done some science fiction and steampunk games, and I like them. I like science fiction and steampunk a lot, but at a certain point, there's no substitute for the knowledge that you're dealing with a subject that really happened. As cool as a constructed science fiction or fantasy world is, as much as it reflects the imagination of one person, it's still limited to the imagination of one person. And boy, the things that happen in history are just so much more varied and so much richer. But when you read about some of these things that real people did, and you realize this is not something somebody made up, there's something really compelling about that at least keeps drawing me back to history. the game never really plays the way you imagine it should play when you originally design it. So I tend to play it the way I think it ought to work. When you're designing, you start with a set of rules, you play it and change it and play it and change it, and you go through so many different versions of the game that by the time you get to the end, the actual rules that are published, you've played very little compared to all this other stuff. So when you actually get out there playing the rules, you don't really remember after a while which version of the rules is this, you know? So, but people who've never seen anything but your final version don't have that confusion about what the rules are. They get this one set and they know it really well. I enjoy writing games and I enjoy putting them on. But if it comes to playing, I'm really happier playing someone else's rules rather than my own. Usually, I will run across something, a historical incident, that really grabs my imagination. And the most recent example I can think of is I read a terrific book called Neptune's Inferno. Just kind of the personal stories and the situation and the enormous losses they took and the enormous determination they ended up displaying and ingenuity in overcoming all these problems was just fascinating. And it inspired me to do two things. One of them is a game I'm still working on covering that very campaign. But the other thing was, it's really the inspiration for the novel I'm working on right now, which is a science fiction novel set in the future, but capturing that same kind of the first campaign of a war where nobody knows quite what they're doing, and it just, so that's, an incident like that can inspire a whole bunch of stuff from it. Right now I'm a science fiction novelist. I have 3 novels out from Baen Books. The 4th one will be coming out next year, I think. I'm finishing up the rewrite on that right now. And I had a couple of ebooks from Untreed Reads before that in a steampunk series that was based off of my original role-playing game that's called Space 1889 and Beyond from Untreed Reads. So I've been writing fiction for about the last 15 years, but getting it published for about the last 5. That takes most of my time now is the fiction writing, but I still keep my feet in this. I still like this.